Should you play Last Epoch Season 2 Tombs of the Erased? Short answer, yes. Last Epoch strikes a great balance between being challenging and complex on one side, but also being accessible and somewhat casual-friendly on the other. It sits right between Path of Exile and Diablo 4 in terms of depth and approachability. Plus, it arguably has the best solo self-found and crafting systems in the genre. If that's enough to convince you, my job here is done. Thank you very much for watching, like and subscribe, and see you next time. But if you want to know a bit more about why I recommend this game and what makes it stand out, keep watching. First of all, Last Epoch is an action RPG, a Diablo-like game. Someone would probably want me to call it, but I won't. It's developed by 11th Hour Games, an indie developer, and after a period in early access, it officially launched in February 2024. Now, in April 2025, it has received its second major update, patch 1.2, Tombs of the Erased. So what makes Last Epoch a good game overall? There are different elements that come into play. Some have been there since 1.0 release, while others have been introduced now or reworked with the latest patch. I'll have a look first at the base characteristics that have been there since the start, sort of, and then I'll have a look at what the new patch has introduced. First selling point. Last Epoch is genuinely new player friendly. The game has a passive tree for each class and one for each active skill you can use, but navigating through them doesn't feel frightening and confusing like in Path of Exile. First of all, there aren't hundreds and hundreds of nodes. Well, at least they're not dumped on you all at once. Instead, the layout is clear and node descriptions are detailed and easy to understand. So, unless you really hate reading, you quickly grasp not just what each node does, but also how they synergize, letting you build something effective. Speaking of builds, there is indeed quite a variety, with 5 classes and 3 masteries for each class. Plus, as I mentioned, each active skill has its own passive tree. You can really unleash your power fantasy, but the best part? You don't really need a spreadsheet or hours of research to make something viable. You can totally wing it and end up with a decent build that substantially works for the endgame content. Of course, the more you play, the better you will be at winging it, but the game doesn't punish you for being a noob. First of all, there is no XP penalty on death, but most importantly, you can easily respec. At any moment in time, whether you're level 10 or 70, you can respec and reallocate your passive nodes. And now, with the latest patch, you can even respec your mastery. This is a big deal. Originally, the developers didn't want this, but the community pushed hard and they listened. The only thing you can't change is your base class. For that, you have to reroll a new character and replay the game from the start. Is leveling a hassle though? Not in Last Epoch. Your first playthrough with a brand new character and no previous loot will take about 15 hours to reach level 60, when you should be done with the campaign and the endgame starts. Besides, there are no difficult parts where you feel the need to go back to a previous area to grind for better gear. End of act bosses are challenging, but never frustrating, and you usually don't die over and over for a small mistake. How long does it take leveling a second character then? 8 to 9 hours, I reckon. How's that? Well, aside from using the good gear the previous character has accumulated, now you can take shortcuts and skip parts of the campaign. Instead of clearing every single story area, now you can take a detour through a dungeon and emerge on the other side, closer to the end of the act. Dungeons are tougher, but the rewards are better and you avoid the slow parts of the story. So leveling feels always fresh and not like a chore. One of the best things about Last Epoch is how friendly it is to solo self-found play. You can absolutely play without ever trading, and you won't feel like you're progressing much slower than those who do. How was it achieved? In a very simple way. At the start of the last act, you can choose to join one of two factions, the Circle of Fortune or the Merchants Guild. You like trading and want to set up your own shop with your hard-earned spoils of war? Join the Merchants Guild. You want to find all your gear by yourself and don't like trading? Join the Circle of Fortune. By doing so, the drop rates increase considerably. Plus, you gain access to prophecies, meaning objectives that guarantee a specific item type drop when fulfilled. It's perfect for farming what you actually need without trading. As you can see, this simple system supports both major playstyles, and both are totally viable. Another standout? Last Epoch has a built-in loot filter. I find it easy to set up and rather powerful too. You can highlight items, hide junk, and customize what you see. My only criticism? Besides changing the color of the tooltip text, you can't add symbols or other decorations to make items pop more. But that's just a tiny complaint. Other games should learn from this. Let's talk about crafting. It's genuinely strong because it introduces deterministic upgrades into what's usually a pure RNG system. Without going too much into the detail, there are still some forging actions linked to RNG, but the most common one, i.e. increasing the tier of an affix, is substantially deterministic. If you need a little more power, just craft it onto your gear and you'll feel the difference right away. Top tier loot still comes from monster drops, but with a new patch you can craft on those too, smoothing out some of the randomness even at endgame. More on that later. Lastly, maps. They're just of the right size, both in the campaign and in the endgame. They never feel too big or confusing. Endgame maps are quick too. It takes me roughly 5 minutes to complete their objective and move on. Now, with the latest patch, new side areas sometimes appear during normal maps. These add maybe 3 to 5 extra minutes per map, but they're absolutely packed with monsters and loot. You'll see an explosion of item drops, gold, and carnage. It's totally worth the detour. Let's look now at the big new content in Tombs of the Erased. Patch 1.2 is a huge update. Not just for the endgame, they also added quality of life improvements. Many skills have been reworked. Enemies are better balanced. Tons of little improvements make the game smoother. For example, as mentioned before, now you can respec your mastery, which wasn't possible before. Another good one is the introduction of keyboard movement. still in testing, but a nice option. But the heart of the patch is the endgame, which has always been a weak spot for some players, feeling a bit repetitive. Now, as soon as you start mapping, you'll meet a new faction, the Woven. Joining them adds a whole extra layer to endgame mapping, making it more interesting and rewarding. Most importantly, you now get a skill tree for your maps. It's similar to Path of Exile's Atlas tree. By choosing different nodes, you can tailor your mapping experience and target the loot or content you actually want. Those new side areas I mentioned earlier are the Tombs of the Erased, and they also bring a special reward. At the end, you can use an enchanting station to enchant your idols. Enchanting lets you add up to 2 extra affixes to an idol. These affixes are different and more powerful than the usual idol stats. So this opens up a whole new level of build customization. Another piece of new content is the Cemetery of the Erased, a much bigger, loot-packed version of the regular tombs. At the end of these, you'll find the Altar of the Weaver. What can you do there? Well, while running the cemetery, you may pick up a Woven Echo. This is a new special echo, a map, that you can slot into your timeline, what I call the Atlas, just for clarity. Some Woven Echoes contain special bosses, others offer unique rewards you can get in regular echoes, and some offer advanced crafting options. Let's talk about those. Traditionally, in action RPGs, uniques, sets, and legendaries come as is, with no option to modify them. Well, not in Last Epoch anymore. Some Woven Echoes end with a special forge that lets you do the impossible. For example, you can shatter a set item and turn it into shards containing its unique powers. Then you can add those shards to a rare item, turning it into a reforged set item. So you get the rare's stats plus the set power, and it even counts for the set bonuses. There's also a forge that lets you reroll the legendary potential on uniques. Legendary potential is the number that determines how many affixes can be transferred from an exalted item when you combine it with a unique to make a legendary item. It ranges from 1 to 4. So imagine rerolling a 3 or a 4. You can totally make a god tier gear with this. There's more. Another forge lets you reroll affixes on uniques, legendaries, or sets. But it comes at a cost. You must sacrifice a matching unique, legendary, or set item. And if that's not enough, you can now replace a specific affix on a rare item. Before, you could use a rune, which you can still do, by the way, to destroy a random affix, possibly the one you didn't like. But you were totally at the mercy of RNG. Now, you have full control over which affix to swap out. So, do I recommend Last Epoch 1.2 update? Especially after Path of Exile 2 recent not so well received patch? Absolutely. It's not as complex as Path of Exile, but it offers depth and systems you can really dig into. It's not as casual as Diablo 4. Yes, D4 is fun, but it's also simple compared to Last Epoch. But still, you can play it as deep or as chill as you want. Some systems like crafting and solo self-found are truly best in genre, and the big boys, PoE and D4, could learn a thing or two. No, it's not perfect, but even Path of Exile became what it is after years of updates. Given time, I think Last Epoch could reach a comparable level. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And let me know in the comments what you think of Last Epoch, or if you're going to give it a try. Please also consider to like and subscribe. That would really help my channel. Also, I'd like to thank all my Ko-fi supporters, and if you want to support me as well, the link to my page is in the description. And until next time, take care and stay relaxed. Bye bye.